Hello, BookTube. It's time for another magazine article. This is day 9 of May is for Magazines. Today, still with Chambers Journal. Going to read Curious Superstition in Sutherland. In many parts of the Highlands, there are various superstitious practices still resorted to for the cure of disease. One of the strangest and most interesting cases of this kind may be met with in the county of Sutherland. Here, in an unfrequented spot near the foot of Strathnaver, lies a small loch to which superstition has ascribed wonderful healing virtues. Its fame has spread far and wide in the northern counties, and pilgrimages are made to it from many remote districts of Sutherland, from the adjacent counties of Caithness and Rose, and even from Inverness and Orkney Islands. It is not known when the loch first came into repute with the sick, but it must have been when superstition had a strong hold in this country, and ignorance prevailed among the people. For this belief in the mysterious curative power of the water can be traced back through several generations. The water and also the leaves of a plant which grows in the loch are still used by the sick at their homes. But to derive full benefit from these, the patients must make a visit to the spot. The tradition as to the origin of this healing virtue is as follows. A woman from Ross or Inverness at one time came to Strathnaver pretending to cure all forms of disease by means of water into which she had previously thrown some pebbles which she carried about with her. She soon secured a wide reputation in the Strath on account of the miraculous cures which she was accredited. Many persons looked with covetous eyes upon the mysterious pebbles and would fain have got possession of them, but the people dared to expose themselves to the supernatural power with which the woman was supposed to be endowed, by endeavoring to deprive her of the pebbles by unfair means. At length, however, a man named Gordon, in whose house she lived, determined to possess himself of them, and formed a plot for their capture. But the woman, discovering his design, escaped to the direction of the loch. Gordon pursued, finding that she could no longer escape her pursuer. The woman threw the pebbles far out into the loch, exclaiming in Gaelic, "Mon nuair," that is shame, or literally, my shame. From this exclamation, the loch is said to have received the name which it still retains, Loch Mona, and the pebbles are supposed to have imparted to the water its curative power. One would suppose from this simple legend, which attaches no conditions to the manner in which the patient should avail themselves of the peculiar power with which the water is imbued, that it would be an easy matter for one to test its efficiency, to test its efficacy. There are, however, many ceremonies to be observed, as strange as they are inconvenient to the unfortunate patient, though how they originated cannot be ascertained. The only condition which appears reasonable is that by which the covetous Gordon and all his descendants are forever denied any benefit from the water. There are only 4 days in the year on which cures can be effected, and the first Monday, old style, of February, May, August, and November, and the ceremonies must be gone through between 12 o'clock on Sunday night and sunrise on Monday morning. The practice of visiting the loch in February and November has long been discontinued, owing doubtless to the extreme unpleasantness of taking a midnight bath in such times. Shortly after midnight, the patients begin to arrive in carts attended by relatives and friends, many of the arrivals having traveled long distances during the previous Sunday. Without loss of time, the sick are transferred to the banks of the loch, and roaring fires are lit in several places. This accomplished, the patients immediately seek a cure by first throwing a piece of silver money into the loch as a kind of tribute. Then, wading into the water, they plunge 3 times through the surface, and finally a few mouthfuls are swallowed by each patient. Those who are able to take their bath without assistance may suit themselves as to the length of time they will remain in the water, but their unfortunate brethren who require to be carried in often narrowly escape drowning through the mistaken zeal of their friends, who are careful to give them a thorough immersion. Presumably on account of these cases being of more serious nature. Having all regained dry ground, they proceed to dress themselves and collect around the fires which have for some time been blazing near the water's edge. The welcome warmth of the fire is supplemented with plenty of viscabalata, and eatables of various kinds soon take their appearance. These they now proceed to discuss amid lively conversation, interspersed with many stories of former visits to the loch and the marvelous curses which resulted. The sense at that moment is the midnight panic begins in a very weird and striking one. The blazing fires reveal in a strong light the faces of the company, some of whom are still only half dressed, while upon the surrounding heather and the dark water close by is cast a peculiar and ever-changing ruddy glare. Beyond is the blackness of night, nothing being visible except the dark outlines of the neighboring hills, whose huge forms show themselves dimly against the sky. As soon as the dawn begins to appear, the gathering breaks up and all prepare for departure, it being a rule that they must be out of sight of the loch before the sun rises, else their trouble will have been in vain. After filling the now empty whiskey bottles with water for the use of helpless patients at home, a start is made on the homeward journey, and the scene assumes its usual aspect. These strange proceedings have of late years been gradually falling into disuse, but even still they may be occasionally seen. At one time, scores of men and women used to visit the loch, some to try its efficacy, while others went there for mere curiosity, for the Loch Mona night doings always created great interest in the district. Many cures were attributed to the mysterious power of the water. It is noticeable, however, that the majority of those who sought such a cure were persons suffering from nervous complaints and disordered imaginations, to whom the excitement of the midnight plunge in the loch, preceded and followed by the long journey in the bracing air of the hills and glens, might contribute all that was necessary to restore them to health, especially when supplemented by a strong belief that a speedy cure would follow. The water gets the credit for all the cures, while, on the other hand, the failure to restore a patient's health is generally attributed to some breach of the observed customs. So ends Curious Superstitions in Sutherland. I did look at a longer article. It was on the Black Museum, because it was mentioned in yesterday's article. It would take, it's about almost half an hour to read. I don't know if anybody would be interested in it. It goes through, basically a walk through a lot of the artifacts that are in the Black Museum at Scotland Yard for 1885. And so if anybody is interested in that, they are kind of detailed and a bit gruesome at times. But if anybody's interested, then yeah, I can definitely read that. But I didn't think I wanted to burden anybody with a half-hour reading at this point until they would let me know. Anyway, take care, BookTube. I'll be back tomorrow with Day 10.